Okay. Well,
I'm just
yeah, we'll get rolling then. So, believe it or not, this is
the
episode 10. You're the first double digit
big
episode.
double digits. Let's
Yeah.
go.
We're legit now. We're legit.
Yeah.
10 weeks. It's kind of surprising to me. 10 weeks in a row I've managed. Really more so it's surprising in the sense that
Mm.
I've managed to coordinate meeting with people and sitting down and recording the session because that's honestly the hardest part. This part right here where
Yeah.
it's just you and I talking, this is always the easiest
Mm.
part, the most enjoyable part.
Yeah.
It's the rest of it of
Yeah.
like, sending emails and trying to figure out
Mhm.
time zones and all that stuff. It's a
Oh
challenge.
yeah.
But
Yeah, I could imagine.
episode
Yeah.
10, we've got Adam here this morning, early morning for me. It's still dark
Oh
outside.
yeah.
Is it light? It's light for you, right?
Yeah,
Just
really cold over here, but I would imagine it's not the same for you, but
no, California. Unfortunately, in the winter, it's not even cold where I live, which is I love to go skiing, and so like this year has kind of been a weird year for skiing. There hasn't been, aside from December, which was literally like a record-breaking snowfall month. We haven't gotten anything. It's been frustrating.
yeah.
Anyway, I am excited about. I honestly, for me, this I'm probably the most excited about this one than I have been the rest
Mm.
because the topic that you wanted to talk about is extremely interesting to me, and this idea of being empowered by music, and it's something I've
Mm.
heard other people say before, but it's never something I personally have experienced. Like I've had music help me with a situation.
Mhm.
I've had music make things more understandable. I've had music allow me to get my emotions out or whatever.
Mhm.
And even in high school when I was kind of awkward and quiet and didn't really know where I existed in the world, I never had an experience where I listened to music and then felt empowered by it. But that's what you want to
Mhm.
talk about today, and I think it's an incredibly fascinating subject. So please, Adam, by all means, take it away, man. Let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I by all means don't have like a super cool story like where I found music. It's like you'll see in a second that it's like really that's where you found like the music that empowered you like but I'll give a little backstory like my I grew up in a Muslim household and then in 6th grade I moved to I moved from Muslim private school to a public school and I started to notice that there was like a world outside Islam, um, and kind of was a little bit discovering things that I like and blah blah blah. And so there was kind of some you know arguments with my parents about certain rules and stuff. Um, so that was like a little bit hard, and I felt kind of powerless, um, because I know my parents are trying to do what's best for me, but there were times where I felt like certain rules or certain things that they were trying to push in Islam wasn't really for me. Um, and So that was kind of a constant thing up until like high school. And then COVID happened,
Oh yeah.
and I think everyone felt a little powerless during that. Not being able to kind of control like the actions of other people. Other people don't want to keep other people safe and stuff. Not listening to you know the kind of the rules, I guess, um, of like how to like common decency and stuff, like just to wear the mask. And I felt powerless about that because I can't. There's not one person I can like be like, hey, you're not this is not going to be over if you don't do this. It's I felt powerless and I didn't have control over the situation that's going on, and I felt like isolated and stuff. And then yeah, and so and at the same time, my like when COVID started, my mental health was like all-time low. Like I had to like talk to someone about it and stuff like that, and I ended up finding out that I have OCD. Um, and so that was really tough for me and kind of managing that. And this is the part where I said that. you're not gonna be satisfied with how I found the music. But
I'm excited.
um,
I'm excited.
yeah, I was on Instagram one day, and there are like funny videos or memes that I like to look at on there. And there was a meme of this guy like I don't know, he was like I don't know, something about he was driving weird on the highway or something. But there was this song in the background that was playing, and it was "No More Questions" by Eazy-E. And
Okay.
I
I'm
was
not
like,
familiar with that one.
yeah, yeah. He well, I'll talk about it, but I was like, this song is pretty good. Um, and I was like, okay, like I usually you know, if you ever need a song on Instagram, no, chances are someone asked in the comments what it is. So I went down there. I'm like, all right, looking for it, and it was "No More Questions" by Eazy-E. And so I'm like, all right, let me add this to my playlist. I added it, and then on the music platforms, they always have like related things,
Yeah.
and at the bottom it was NWA, and I'm like, what is this? And I clicked on it, and it said it was a rap group that consisted of Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, Eazy-E, MC Ren, DJ Yella, and I was like, "Hey, isn't Dr. Dre Snoop Dogg's friend?" Like that, like that's how I knew him. Like, and then I was like, "And Ice Cube's the guy in Are We There Yet?" Like I didn't know them like other than that, and so I'm like, all right, this is kind of cool. Like I'd never heard of it. I wonder why I never heard of this. So I go into their first album, and that first song starts, and it starts with Eazy-E saying, "You're now about to witness the strength of street knowledge,"
Yep.
and then
Yep.
it goes into it, and I'm like, "Whoa, this is crazy!" And I'm like listening to this, and then they're like, "Crazy motherfucker named Ice Cube," and like I was like, "What?" Like, and then it goes into the second song, "Fuck the Police," and
Yes.
I
Oh yeah.
was like, I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy," and it was like, it was it it was almost like I couldn't relate to what they were saying at face value, but like I found myself able to relate to them, like the world kind of being against them. Like if you have like after I listened to the album, I kind of went and like researched them a little bit, and it was like you know like the media will be against certain artists or this and that, but when I was looking into them, it almost felt like the whole world was against them more than like other than the media. Like it was like the world kind of thought that like, oh, they were like these gangsters that are glorifying this and that, and I was like, and like they just kept making the music that they wanted to make. And there's like I was listening to it last night to kind of refresh myself before I go into this, and there was a line in one of the songs where it was like um something like shoot, now of course now that I'm on camera I can't remember it,
So
but
I'd have the
it
same
was
experience all the time.
yeah, it was like uh they don't want to. It was like NWA rap about what we want to say, or something like that. And it was kind of like that's like really cool that they were just like, yeah, we know that like you guys don't want us to talk about this, but we're gonna do it anyway because this is the music we want to make. And I felt like I had some relatability in the fact that like there were things that like my parents, didn't want me to do, and like didn't, wasn't really okay with, or not like that, but I mean like, you know, they were trying to push like the um, religious stuff, and there were things that I didn't, think that I don't know, like I didn't
It is an
kind of agree
interesting,
with.
yeah, it's an interesting
Yeah.
parallel. I think what you're talking about is actually really cool. I mean, never mind the fact. I think you're alluding to the fact that because you found it on Instagram, it's kind of silly. I mean, who cares? It's actually,
Yeah.
to me, it's pretty awesome that you found it, and then
Hmm.
just that one post on Instagram has sent you down this whole rabbit hole of
Yeah.
music. But
Hmm.
I'm not familiar with the whole album. I haven't listened to it. I know a couple tracks. Fuck the Police is one of my favorite tracks.
Hmm. Yeah.
Rage Against the Machine did this great cover of it too, so I know it from them. But
Oh.
this is an interesting parallel, and it's something I've never really considered before. In that it's like you were saying, their world and what they're dealing with is clearly very different from what you're dealing with. But
Yeah.
the struggle exists, and this idea
Hmm.
of having to fight back against this feeling of everyone's against you
Yeah.
is a struggle. And I mean, it's interesting, like what you're talking about with your parents and religious ideas and COVID and all of this stuff. And yeah, I can see how those types of elements can take someone and just compress them and make it feel like crap. It's just me
Yeah.
against all of this stuff. And
Hmm.
while maybe the elements that you're fighting against are different from what NWO was fighting against, it's still that same sensation of just being
Yeah.
compressed by all of these things.
Yeah. And I think that like, you know, when I was coming up with this idea, trying to email it to you, I did mention to you this prior, but um that like I was listening to your Dial reaction, and you were talking about Choppa Won't Miss, and you were talking
Oh
about
yeah,
how,
yeah.
yeah, you were like, I don't really understand, like I don't really like this track because it was I don't remember exactly how you said it, but it was like there wasn't a lot of stuff in the words, and it was like, oh, you know, it was a lot about guns and stuff, and there wasn't really any meaning behind it. And I personally liked that track, and I was like, why do I like that track? Then, and I kind of thought about it with myself, and I kind of came up with this because I think that like that songs like that, like you don't, and this is where like this is examples of like where what they're saying doesn't matter. It's kind of how they um deliver it,
Sure.
because like I can't relate to um you know uh, what Ice Cube's saying about um you know the police are kind of being racist and this and that towards him. I can't relate to that, but the way that he delivers it is like he's yelling and he's like real angry about it, and like that's like where I find the common ground is like, okay, I can't relate to police being racist towards me, but I can relate to anger, and I can relate to you know, um, you know, people not liking the choices that I make, and I still want to do them anyway, and so like there's so much common ground that you can find if the lyrics don't really match up with um, you know your ideals. Like I'm not gonna go and like kill a guy and like my chopper won't
Yeah.
miss,
Right, 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 right.
but like I feel like I can like in that song specifically, I feel like I find like um he has like this main character kind of effect that like if you are like coming into my world, and trying to step up to me, this is what's going to happen. And so I feel like I find the kind of power in that song where it's like, you know, like this is my world, and like if you're fucking with it, then my chopper won't miss. But
Yeah, no,
um
that's a really
yeah.
cool parallel, and I'm glad you said that because it clicks with me. I'm glad that you started with Ice Cube and his track, his anger, because
Hmm.
I think everything that you described, it folds really well into the frustration that Cube was expressing about the police, and I think a
Hmm.
lot of people who are upset by that song, they miss the fact, they get so hung up on this idea of fuck the police, and they take it in the sense of, you know, they're all terrible and I hate them and blah, blah, blah. But really, you know, at that time, I don't know my police history very well, but at that time, I know in LA, the LAPD was pretty much notorious for harassing people. And I don't know if it's gotten better or worse, but whatever. But really, Ice Cube was expressing a frustration that is somewhat similar to what you're expressing in terms of like people just not following the rules with COVID, you know? Like
Yeah.
I don't believe Ice Cube has a problem with police doing their job the way they're supposed to do it. But the police never did their job the way they're supposed to when they interacted with him. They just constantly fucked with him because he was a black kid and he had, you know, a little bit of money in a pager or whatever. You know, that track is so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And it's like, I fully believe that if the police, when they interacted with him or his buddies, if they just would have treated them with respect that they deserve, the same respect that they give anybody else, although it's questionable if they showed anybody else respect to begin with, if they just would have done that, if they would have followed the rules that they're supposed to follow, they treat people with respect, he would have never wrote that song. It would have never happened. But because his life experience was just full of these events, that's what came out of him. And I feel like, you know, that parallel dropping into this idea that you're talking about, you know, with people not following rules with COVID and all this other stuff, it's a similar frustration.
Yeah.
And then taking that same concept that you put into my brain there and putting it onto something like Choppa Won't Miss and this idea of a main character. That was a great analogy because I like to play games and stuff. And that's one of the great things about playing a game is being this main character and you can take on all these elements and you defeat everything and it's fun and you know, but yeah, don't come to me. I'll tear you apart.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that like, you know, like it's good to find like, I don't know, like I just think that the main character feeling in that song really can help with like, you know, a lot of what I, you know, it's such a silly song to kind of
It is a silly song.
like to just kind of think about this like, oh, he's the main character and this and that, but it's like I don't know, like it was kind of just the road that I went down when I was thinking about it, and I think that like I think that's why I liked a Whole Lot of Red too, is like a lot of like it, going back to kind of like the delivery is like everything on that album is delivered in a way that's like really angry. And if you go into the album the um with the knowledge that like it's 2 years after Dial and he's you know everyone leaked all his songs and this and that and
Which
like
has to be absolutely maddening when you're trying to make an
yeah.
album.
Yeah, and then like Metamorphosis, like you know, he's like this Whole Lot of Red is his metamorphosis, and like you know, and like he's pissed off, and like he's rapping about stop breathing, and like when I go to sleep, I dream about murder and this and that, and like obviously I don't dream about murder, so I don't relate to that, but I think that like you know I can relate to like the anger that he has in his voice. And so I think that's what I really like about that album. And when I say this next point, I'm begging you, Bob, to please listen to the Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh, it's coming in March.
Okay.
It's coming in March.
Okay.
It's coming.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Okay. Because what like after NWA, after I found NWA, you know, I was really on this like binge of like 90s hip hop. And I was like, you know, I was listening to like Biggie and then and all that. But then I found the Wu-Tang Clan and I was like, whoa, like this is insane. The like the vocals, like dude, the vocals on that album is like they're all like so like they sound like they're growling. Like it's like
Oh,
they're like
cool.
they're like their voice is very like not raspy, but like they're it like cuts deep. Like you
Yeah.
hear that stuff, and it's like and like the instrumentals, they sound like they were made in a basement, but it sounds like it's like I don't know, it's like almost like homemade. And uh and like when I'm listening to that, and I every day since we established that we were going to have a talk, I've been listening to that album because I want to be like I want to be back in it. Like I I just want to have a refresher and just like listen to it every day. It's an easy listen, but the point that I'm trying to make is that like a lot of their lyrics, I there's one or two songs on the album where you can look into the lyrics, but I feel like and I hope that I don't get any uh you know mean comments about this because I don't know if this is the wrong opinion, but I think that like a lot of the songs on the album, there's not a whole lot you can read into. I think it's a lot of like, you know, I'm gonna kill you, this, that, whatever. But it was just the way that it was delivered with this like raspy, like growling kind of sound that was like, yeah, like I'm pissed, like kind of thing. And like that was like a something that I can like, feel because like I was going through this time where it was like I'm pissed off about everything.
Yeah.
You know, I'm you know, I don't have any control over the fact that I have like OCD or like these COVID people or anything like that. And it was just like, you know, that they have a very like main character effect. Like it's like it's like Chapo won't miss that feeling, that like main character feeling, but the whole album.
Oh, that's
Like
cool.
they feel like they're the main character. And like they're and there's something about the fact that like they're a group. Like it's like I got my boys with me, and so if you're messing with one of us, you're messing with all of us.
Yeah.
And there's like this theme that they kind of always go to in their songs, that they're like the Wu-Tang Killer Bees. And that's like a cool that's a cool thing. It's like you mess like with the hive, all of us are coming, like, and like that really feels cool when I'm like in this isolated place because I can't go out and see my friends. There's like this whole thing, and I'm doing my part to kind of stay safe about it, and there's other people that aren't. And like that just makes me angry that like, and I feel more alone in that. And like, hearing Wu-Tang and like hearing, them just kind of, they're all in this together kind of thing, and like they're all angry and this and that, and it was just like, man, like this is really what I need right now,
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the band called the Smashing Pumpkins?
Yeah.
Have you heard their song? What is it? A bullet? What is it called? Bullet with butterfly wings. Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's another great one. I think that captures that feeling. And I was looking at some interviews with Billy Corgan. He's the lead singer for Smashing Pumpkins, and he was talking about that song specifically. And he said he wrote it because he felt, well, I'm gonna butcher my paraphrase of what he said, but basically he said as the band got bigger and bigger and bigger, he still felt like he couldn't do anything about certain elements of like, I don't know I can't remember if he was referring to like the record industry or whatever.
Mhm.
And he said just no matter what he did, he constantly felt like he was just in this cage, thrashing around, trying to get out of this cage, and he could never get out of the cage. And the lyrics, it's been a long time since I listened to that song, so the lyrics aren't fresh in my mind. The chorus, obviously, but I think it captures that same feeling of what you're talking about of, I've got this anger and I feel powerless. Like I can't do anything to change what's happening around me. And the more I try and do something about it, the more I feel imprisoned by the things I can't change. And it's like a feedback loop. It just gets
Yeah.
angrier and angrier and angrier. I was thinking of that song as you were talking about that. What
Hmm.
I like too, what you're talking about with the Wu-Tang Clan, it is one thing to hear delivery and the emotion and the anger that comes through it and being able to connect with that. But then this added element of it's all of these guys. So now,
Hmm.
not only are you connecting with the emotion through the lyrics and the delivery, but you also feel even more empowered in the sense because you just don't even feel alone. You've got this group that's with you and they're behind you and they're rolling with you and all this other stuff. So that's really
Yeah.
cool too. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll hear in the album that it's like there's one when you're saying that there was one thing that I got reminded of in the album. I think it's like it's on the song Clan in the Front, and in the background as like one of them is doing like the lyrics, um they're all in the back going ooh ooh ooh, and it's like they're coming. It sounds like this group of this mob of guys are like coming closer and like they're like angry, and it's like okay, that's kind of cool. Like it feels like I'm like it's almost like protected because like I'm like I'm not alone,
Yeah.
and stuff. And so I think that's really cool, and it's a sense of like you know uh just being part of a group and like just being with people, and
Yeah.
that I needed that at a time with stuff like COVID.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Yeah, it is incredible how music can do that. And I wonder if it's something that rock bands clearly have multiple members, but they're all just playing instruments and usually you only have one vocalist, maybe there's a couple vocals going on. But as you talk about that specifically this group, I can't really recall a time where I've listened to a rock song and have felt supported by a group of people. Usually it's a group of people working together to create a piece that I then
Hmm.
can connect with, but that piece feels like an individual thing.
Yeah.
And and so people have mentioned, of course, Wu-Tang. Another one that comes up a lot is Brockhampton, and I
Hmm.
think I think there's one more I'm forgetting. I think, but this
Maybe ASAP Mob or
yeah, there's been a couple I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but that idea is really neat in the terms of this topic of being empowered by music because it's something else I've never really considered, um, of somebody who feels alone now feeling like there's a group of people supporting you, and that's a
Mhm.
cool idea. I really like that, and I've never experienced it, so it's neat to hear you talk about that and pull that from music. I think that's fascinating, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like, you know, hip hop is not like the only thing I've listened to. Like, before I got into hip hop, and I was big into rock and classic rock and like metal and stuff. I got Ozzy Osbourne
Oh
over
yeah,
there,
yeah,
but
I noticed that. Yeah.
um, but like I think that like they have themes of like being oh like we're not going to follow the rules kind of thing, but I never really felt the feeling of pushing back against the rules until I found hip hop. Like I feel like they take it to another level. Like I can't explain it, but like you know I feel like I've listened to a lot of like rock stuff, and Black Sabbath is one of my favorites, but I never really felt like you know any pushback against the rules and like real power until I listened to hip hop. And it's so interesting to me that like you know that hip hop, like, in my mind is different because like on the surface I think that like metal and rock and all that kind of stuff is they have those kind of themes in it, like we're not going to follow the rules and we're this and that we're bad influences and this and that. But I don't know, like hip hop is just so different.
I think what you're describing without realizing is, with rock and metal and stuff like that, typically, Ozzy, especially Ozzy,
Mm,
more of what they're doing is saying, yeah, we're not going to follow the rules, but what they're specifically doing is more of like just being hellraisers, troublemakers. They're going out and doing all these crazy things and ha ha ha, you can't stop us and we don't care and blah blah blah. But that's a very different situation from somebody who is pushing back against a system that is oppressing you. And so with
yeah,
Cube and Fuck the Police, like he's not saying I'm not going to follow the rules. He's saying the rules are specifically designed to stop me, and I'm fighting
yeah,
that machine. So it's a different
yeah.
experience.
Oh yeah, yeah, and yeah, you're definitely right about that. Um, so I think that that's why I ended up in the end connecting more with hip hop in the end of the day, and I I think that um what might have been like, and I was going to talk about this earlier, but conversation can go anyway.
Yeah.
But I was gonna mention earlier that before I listened to NWA, I had kind of some previous experience with hip hop, but I don't really I don't really count it as my first hip hop experience. Like I think I really got into it with NWA. But, my dad's my dad likes, he used to be a skateboarder and he would, go and skateboard at the skate parks and stuff. So he listened to like punk and stuff like that. And one of the thing, this is not punk, but one of the things he listened to was Beastie Boys.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sure.
And that was, if technically it was my first hip hop experience. And I think that album, the first album, License to Ill by Beastie Boys, was, I think that album is a good album to transition someone from rock to hip hop. Because I think a lot of the elements that they did in that album was like, um, they sampled a lot of rock stuff.
Oh
Like
okay.
there's they did a few Led Zeppelin samples, some guitar and some drums, um and then there was a Black Sabbath one. Just like a lot of it was, there was a lot of guitar on that album, a lot of kind of rock stuff. It was a lot of them just rapping over like rock instruments.
That's interesting. That's really cool.
And
It's I
yeah.
think too, especially for me, someone who I've continually struggled with samples, just in understanding what they are mechanically, but then also not knowing the songs that are being referenced. Like I'll hear a
Mhm.
sample, but I don't know the song that's being sampled. So hearing an album that is pulling samples from music that I'm familiar with makes it easier to understand what the sample is and the mechanic that the sample is serving in the song.
Right. Right. And so I think that that album might be one you want to check out, but I think that like it's still I think that's what made it easier for me to transition from, Ozzy and Dio and stuff like
Dio, yeah.
that to Eazy-E and NWA. And I wanted to mention that just because I felt like that might have been something important that kind of helped me get to where I am today with listening to like, Wu-Tang and like and even the newer artists like Cardi and stuff. So I did want to mention that just
Yeah, that's a good
before I
mention.
continue.
I do want to ask, as you transition to this music, what has been the response from your parents? Like I know with your dad listening to punk and Beastie Boys and stuff like that, like has there been a line where he hears certain songs and goes, "No, that's too far"? Or I mean, how has that experience been?
Um, yeah, so when Cardi was doing the tour,
The
he was
yeah,
he
yeah,
was
like the
he was
Rolling Loud in New York stuff.
yeah, he was coming near my way, and I was like, man, like Cardi was like one of my favorite. He's like one of my favorite newer artists, and so I'm like, damn, this would be. And I'm watching all these videos of like him just like screaming up there, and like, and I was actually the one that recommended you the uh that one video where the professor is talking about the
Oh,
anti-concert.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you did. That
Yeah,
was really interesting to hear his perspective on that.
yeah. And like I was hearing this guy talk about it. I'm like, damn, I want to go so bad. So I went to my dad. I'm like, listen, I know, and listen, I'm like, listen, I know this sounds bad, but can I go to this concert with my friends and this and that? And he's like, all right, let me listen to a couple of the songs.
Oh shit.
And I heard, when I heard him say that, I was like,
Yeah.
I know it's no, I know. And so he's like, not go to this concert. Like there's just there's too many bad things that he's talking about and whatever. And I was like, all right, well, so I mean, there's definitely songs that he hasn't liked, but you know, I think my me and my dad's common ground is Wu-Tang. He definitely likes Wu-Tang, and we started watching this show recently. They have a Wu-Tang show on Hulu. Um,
Oh, cool.
yeah, and so we were watching that recently, and so I think that's the common ground that we kind of find, and also Beastie Boys. But a lot of the newer stuff, he's not really into, and I think I kind of messed up because you know his kind of first introduction to uh newer hip hop was Cardi,
Yeah.
so I kind of made the mistake on that part, but uh yeah, so
That's funny. It's I mean, at least there is some common ground. That's really nice. One of the things I love with my son is that he lives well, I mean, I just play my music and if he doesn't like it, that's deal with it. I don't really care.
yeah.
But because I'm constantly playing music at the house, I have my speakers here set up on my desk and this is kind of like our kitchen living room area. So the music is just
Mhm.
playing in the house almost constantly. So he hears everything that I listen to. And sometimes he'll come up and he'll look at my title or whatever and see, oh, what do you listen to? I want to go listen to that too. Or sometimes he'll be like, who
Mhm.
the hell is this? I don't like this at all, And but generally speaking, we share the same interests and enjoyment of music, and it's been really
Mhm.
fun having that common ground. And anytime someone says, yeah, we don't, me and my parents listen to different stuff, it always kind of bums me out just a little bit because it's so fun to sit down and enjoy music with other people and really get into
Mhm.
it. But then it is always interesting too, where you start to see interests split. Like
Mhm.
I enjoy the band Muse, but I don't really love them. I haven't taken the time to sit down and really listen to Muse. But my son, he loves Muse and he'll play them all the time. And he'll tell me, you got to listen to this one. You got to listen to this one. And I'll put them on. I'm like, oh, yeah, those are cool. And then he'll come out a day or two later and be like, how come you're not listening to Muse? I told you to listen to Muse. And it's just funny where everybody's interests end up going and like he can listen to the soundtrack for the video game Doom just over and over and over
Yeah.
again. Like he's all about it. And I think what he's experiencing with that soundtrack is kind of the same thing you're experiencing. Like he's just like it gets him so pumped up. He feels just like badass. He's in there, playing a game or whatever and just
Yeah.
pounding that soundtrack as he's doing it. So
Yeah.
I mean, it is cool that there's some common ground, but yeah, it does make me interested or curious. Like, I wonder if how your dad's response would be to something like Tyler the Creator, Call Me If You Get Lost, something like that. I wonder, you should try introducing him to different things and see if he gets into stuff.
Yeah, yeah. He's definitely the one I would want to go to because my mom is a completely different direction. She is just like country and pop all
Oh
day,
wow,
and
yeah,
so like,
yeah.
we are very, different on that. But um, yeah, I mean that's a good point. I wonder though, he's coming from like a lot of the hip hop stuff that he's listened to is like Wu-Tang, like from my knowledge, is Wu-Tang and Beastie Boys. And so a lot of their, you know, uh, like, a lot of the way that they deliver their lyrics is like yelling and like not yelling, but like, with a loud tone and
Yeah,
like
sure.
rough tone. And so I'm wondering like, would Tyler be a good pick for that? Because I'm not super familiar with Tyler. I know a lot of his like a lot of the songs that I've heard of him are sound more kind of you know light. Like I heard a couple of tracks on what is it, Igor or Igor?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, like Earthquake and Gone Gone are like they're very kind of light songs, and
yeah.
and I'm wondering like what are songs that I would go to with him for Tyler? Like I probably should familiarize myself with Tyler. Like he's a big name and a lot of people like him, but I'm not sure. And I did hear your talk with that one guy about Cherry Bomb.
Oh yeah. I
Um,
was that's what I was thinking of the whole time when you were talking down. I was like
mhm,
cherry bomb, cherry bomb, cherry bomb.
yeah. So okay, then I'll have to listen to it myself because I haven't listened to it. But um, yeah, I think okay.
Yeah, cherry bomb.
Cherry Bomb it is.
Cherry bomb is really interesting. It's very industrial, very heavy. It might honestly, it might be too heavy because some people can't get into it. Like, I think I can't remember if it's the opening track or if it's Cherry Bomb itself or where, but oh no, the opening track is Death Camp. It's the title track, Cherry Bomb. It's so distorted and so loud, and the guy Tyler's vocals are almost non-existent. They just exist behind this wall of sound that's just blasting through the speakers. Man, it's incredible.
Mm.
Oh
Yeah, I
man.
mean, then I'll have to look into that a little bit more. My friend, my friend Jacob is really big into newer hip hop stuff, and when I started, like, he noticed that I was listening to like hip hop and stuff, like Wu-Tang and NWA and Big E and stuff, and he's like, you should try like the newer stuff, and I'm like, okay, what do you recommend? And he gave me this list of 50 albums, and I'm
Jesus.
like, I'm like, hey, I guess I'm jumping into this, like, and I was looking through it, and Cardi was like, he was a name that I kind of heard before, so I'm like, all right, so that's how I started with Cardi, and so that's kind of how I learned a little bit more about the newer stuff. Was my friend just gave me a list of all these albums that I went through, and I listened to them all throughout the year. Last year, I listened to them all, and one um, there's a couple artists that I have written down here that you know kind of gave that same um, feeling of like having power and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Um, one that I was going to talk about is 21 Savage. I what like when I was writing these down, I was thinking about if you had like listened to any albums that they're on. I don't think there's any album that you listen to with 21 Savage like
Not to
as a
my
feature.
knowledge. Yeah, I don't think I've heard him
Yeah.
yet.
Um, he is like a lot of the way he delivers his vocals are very monotone.
Oh,
So
really?
he doesn't do a lot with his voice, and he always pairs up with this one producer, Metro Boomin. I think I don't know if you listen to Life of Pablo.
Not
Pablo,
yet. I haven't gotten to that one
yeah,
yet.
I think he worked. So I think he did some work on that one a little bit. Um, so he always pairs up with the Metro Boomin, and Metro's like uh pro production is like the way he does it is very um you know, one album I will say is Savage Mode 2, and it's a collab album with those two, and it's kind of a funny album because some of the interludes are like, what is it, intermission, whatever, intermissions, interludes,
Sure.
um in between some of the songs, he got like Morgan Freeman to do some monologues, and that, and listening to that album, and 21 Savage has this presence of like impending doom, like with
Cool.
his vocals,
Very
like
cool.
how monotone he is, and a lot of Metro's like production on that album is very like don't like low and stuff like that, and so it sounds like impending doom kind of, and then you hear like at the end of the end of the first track, Morgan Freeman is like, "Oh, oh, can anything be done more than once, or this or that?" Like it's very like, okay, that's kind of cool, like,
That's funny.
and that it kind of has like, and you know, as funny as this sounds, like Morgan Freeman, I think a lot of his acting roles have kind of been a little bit of power. Like, he was, I don't know what movie it was, but he was like God in one of the movies, and
Yeah.
he has like
He's been in a lot of
he
movies. A lot of movies.
yeah, yeah, and so he has like this like power to his voice, and I think him being on that album is very kind of, I found a lot of power in that album too, is just, this impending doom, and then Morgan Freeman on the back saying some stuff about knives or snitches or whatever. And so, um, so that was one I was gonna say that I kind of connected with a little bit, with this kind of power and control thing. Another one is Ski Mask, the Slump God,
Oh, I don't
and
know that one at all. Yeah.
yeah, um, I don't think you would even know any of the people he's worked with, but he, um, it's gonna sound funny, like to people who know who that is, like they're gonna be like, "You're off the rails, dude. Like, how did you find any meaning with what this guy has to say?" But it's kind of, his music is kind of interesting because it's like it almost feels like the whole time his like lyrics, he's just trying to make as many references to things as possible, like references to like shows or movies or
Interesting.
comics or whatever. It's very like he has like this, uh familiar with like Yu-Gi-Oh? Like
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, he has like a chain that's like this huge Yu-Gi-Oh thing, and it's just like funny to me that like, you know like he has like this very he has a very like raspy type of voice, and so I think it's just like cool that it's like he's kind of like not doing what everyone else is doing, and like kind of rapping about like all this other stuff, and just kind of just being like, yeah, like Yu-Gi-Oh, or like, like something like that. And it's just like, I don't know, it's just kind of cool to me. That was kind of an interesting one,
That
that I kind
reminds
of,
that reminds
yeah,
me of
but
I watched the NPR Tiny Desk of Thundercat, and he's playing
mm,
live Thundercat, and I don't know if you're familiar with him at all, but one of the
a
songs
little.
he's talking about how, yeah, I don't remember exactly how it goes. I'm usually drinking when I'm watching it because it just cracks me up so much. But he's talking about how he's at home and his girl comes over, but he's just trying to play Diablo instead, and
Yeah,
just stuff like
yeah.
that.
I think like, it's definitely an odd place to find power, but I feel like Ski Mask has like it's an interesting thing to kind of like, you know, kind of listen to, coming from like 21 Savage, where he's just talking about, killing snitches or this or that, and like
Yeah,
being like
sure.
really, and then going to like, um, you know, Ski Mask, and he has a song named Dr. Seuss and like The Matrix and like, and so it's just like it's kind of an interesting different route that he took with like kind of music like that. And so I think like a big theme of like a lot of the hip hop stuff is just, the power that I find in it.
Yeah.
And you know, I think my story and a lot of the ones that I, find have power, you can you can take that power comes from places that you wouldn't expect, like Instagram or Ski Mask. So,
Yeah. Well, I want to.
so,
We're at about 50 minutes, and what I would like to do is I want to ask you
mhm,
one more question, and we'll kind of wrap up on this topic because I think it's a
sure.
good place to wrap up. You're talking about listening to this music and how it helps you feel empowered. You don't feel as isolated. You feel like okay, you can push back against some of these things that are pushing on you mentally. But then to me, the next question is, okay, well, you get that power from the music. How has that helped you grow as a person? Like, okay, you go from feeling isolated, feeling overwhelmed, feeling alone, then you listen to the music and then okay, now I don't feel these feelings as much anymore. But then what? What happens next? I mean, have you seen yourself kind of push out of the shell that's compressing you and take control of certain elements in your life?
Definitely, 100%. I felt like that. I think that like, um, I haven't talked about it too much because, I'm not, I don't like talking about it too much. But, like with my OCD, like in the beginning of COVID, it was like I was rock bottom. It was like I did not know, I had no idea like what OCD was. I didn't know how to kind of combat it and like, and all that. And then, you know, and then I'm going to talk to people about it and stuff and all that. And, you know, and I think I just found hip hop at the perfect time when I needed it the most because, I started listening to that kind of stuff and it just gave me for however long an album is, it just gives me like an hour, hour and a half of like feeling like I have control over things that go on in my head. Like the music is going in my head and like I'm like vibing with it, and so I think you know, when I kind of found out that I had OCD, that was like 2 years ago now. And I feel like I'm looking back at that and I'm like way grown since then,
Interesting.
like you know, I think that like a lot of like, I've taken control. It feels like the control that I hear that they have in their songs has made me feel like, okay, like enough's enough. Like I need to have control over what's going on in my head, And so like, I think also like talking to someone helped me a lot because, I kind of found strategies on how to, kind of combat it. And so I think that helped. But then, this music was just something that like it was like a plus. It was like added on to the the learning of like how to the strategies and stuff like that. And the strategies don't work as well the first few times. And so I think that like, you know, I think that the music kind of pushed me to kind of like be like, keep going. Like, it didn't work a few times, but that doesn't mean anything. Like, this guy knows what he's talking about. Just, just do it. And like, I don't know, like the, the delivery of like, and especially Wu-Tang, and you'll hear this when you listen to it in March, but like, there's one verse in one of the songs by one of the members, Ghostface Killer, and he says, and the way he delivers it is like slamming a hype ass verse to your head first, and when I hear that, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna hit this head first, and we're like, I'm gonna like, you know, this is not I'm not gonna let it stop me. And then we started going back to school a little bit, and COVID started to get a little better. and I'm feeling good because I'm like, all right, like this, obviously that didn't work out because we're still in it, but
Right, right.
like we started going back to school and it was like, all right, like I made it, like I was there and now I'm here and I'm like, and I got this music with me and I'm just, and the Wu-Tang's with me, like they're in the back, like I'm just like I can do this, and now I feel like 2 years later, I'm just like I'm a whole different person. I feel like hip hop has really kind of helped me, you know, push myself. It wasn't exactly like the number one reason why I had changed, but I think it was like that one, like I had the strategies coming to me from the person that I was talking to about it, and then like the music was kind of what pushed me to keep going. So that was kind of like my experience with that, and that's kind of how I feel like I've changed listening to hip hop from then till now.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Honestly, that was such a great. I don't want to call it summary, but that was just such a great encapsulation of everything we've been talking about over the last hour. And
Hmm.
these are the moments where I hope that at some point in time in the future, whether it's this episode or other people, whatever, that some of the artists get to see people like you talk about stuff like this, because
Yeah.
it's so neat to think about the idea. I think what 36 Chambers came out in like 93 or 94 or something
Hmm.
like that. Like that's
93. Yeah.
yeah, the album's almost 30 years old, you know?
Yeah.
And the idea of these guys making this music and doing what they were doing 30 years ago, and at the time I'm sure their headspace was wherever, and they're going through their own struggles and trying to make music and make it big and all this other stuff. But then I can guarantee at no point did they think to themselves, yeah, 30 years from now, this album that we're making right now is going to help some dude deal with his OCD and a pandemic and feeling isolated and alone. And our
Hmm.
voices are going to pick him up and carry him and help push him through all this crap that he's trying to deal with, even though our songs have nothing to do with what he's going through. Just the
Yeah.
sound of our voices pushing, 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 go, go, go. I
Hmm.
mean, to me, it's just pure magic. It's
Oh yeah.
unbelievable how cool
Yeah.
it is that that stuff happens.
Yeah. And that's why I was like so excited to kind of talk to you about this because it's like I don't, like I said, I don't like talking about my OCD and stuff like that and to people because I don't want people to think that like, you know, I'm doing it for like attention or whatever, but I think like talking to you about this and just kind of like because like prior to this, we didn't really know each other, and I think
Right.
talking to this, about this kind of stuff with a stranger is very refreshing. And like this stranger that lives all the way across the country from me, like wants to hear what I have to say about these rappers, and like, and I think I just had like this was like the kind of confidence that like coming to you talking about this kind of stuff was the confidence I was getting from their music. And I think that I'm just really glad that I did this.
Yeah, I am too. This is great. I think this is
Hmm.
great. This is exactly why I wanted to do stuff like this. I've said
Hmm.
before where I like to do live streams because I like to interact with the community and however I can, but the live streams are so chaotic, it's impossible to
Yeah.
talk to any person. So that's when this kind of formulated in my head, like, oh, I'll just sit down one on one and we'll just talk. And it's great, and I
Yeah.
love it, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I'm glad you can find value in it.
Mhm.
Um, it's been a lot of fun. Dude,
Yeah.
it's so cool. It's so cool to hear you just express these ideas and talk about your own personal journey and your own growth through
Hmm.
music and how it's just helping you grow as a person. It's fantastic, man. I love it.
Yeah. And I can't wait for you to listen to it. Wait, I'm already thinking about what you're gonna like react to stuff. I'm just like, all right, I hope he likes this.
I,
And
I I feel like I'll like it. This on yesterday when I did the Freddie Gibbs album. Initially going into it, the first 4 or 5 tracks, I wasn't really clicking with it. And you had mentioned something earlier when we were talking. I kind of forget it now, but I realized I was focusing on the wrong thing. I'm so lyrically driven. I love lyrics. I love hearing what people are trying to say. And it's not like Freddie Gibbs's lyrics are bad, but there isn't quite as much there as I was hoping for, I should say. But his delivery is it's unbelievable. Like, he can just crack it off constantly. Track after track, he's just tearing through these lyrics. And so when I shifted from focusing on lyrics to more of just the delivery, like you were talking about with some of these other things, then it really started to click with me. And hearing his voice pair in with the beats and how everything just paired together so well, it was great. So yeah. I like the heads up that you gave me about Wu-Tang and how there's multiple people and their voices are raspy, and it's all about the delivery, because I can then be in that headspace going into that album.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, there are like 2 songs that I can think of that kind of you would listen to the lyrics about. The last one, definitely Tears. That is a sad song. It's like it's Ghostface and RZA. And they're talking about a story that they have of like, well, I don't know if I should spoil it.
Yeah,
or
don't spoil it. I was just thinking,
yeah,
don't spoil
I won't.
it.
Yeah, I won't. I won't. But that song you should probably listen to the lyrics for. And then Can It Be So Simple is probably another one.
I mean, I'll always have the lyrics open, but
yeah, right.
Sometimes I just have to shift away from the lyrics a little bit. Like Playboi Carti, you don't sit there and read the lyrics. He's a musical experience. He's not a lyrical experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, this was a great talk, man. I really enjoyed it. Do you have anything you'd like to share for closing thoughts as we wrap up here?
Well, the last thing I will say about Wu-Tang is that I don't know, you may know this, you may not, but Method Man, that was on Biggie's album, is in the Wu-Tang. So
okay.
That will be someone you'll see. So that's the only thing that I had in my mind that I wanted to mention. But
yeah, I recognize his name because there's Method Man, and then there's another there's Redman also, right? But that's a different artist, right?
I think Redman, I don't think he's like an official member, but I think he was on later.
Oh, okay.
Later albums.
Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't in the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was great, man. Honestly, I have to say this. This is no BS or anything. It was cool to listen to your experience and share this idea of being empowered by music. Because like I said at the beginning, I've never personally had that. I think I lean on music in a different way, whereas it's more of like a support structure rather than a encouragement structure, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like I've always used music as a way to just try and unravel some of the mental knots that exist in my head, Yeah. But it was so cool to listen to you explain how, these voices and these deliveries and just the power that comes with it, the frustration, the emotion, how it was able to pick you up and kind of help propel you forward. That was an awesome share. Yeah. Man. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And I hope that now with the information that I've kind of gave you, it'll be a little easier to kind of understand songs that, the lyrics don't mean a lot,
It will.
So I hope
Yeah, it's another perspective to just kind of stick in here and consider as I'm listening to stuff that's new to me. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that'll wrap up episode 10, the big 1-0 there for Conversations with the Community. We had Adam here. Yeah, thanks, dude. Thank you so much for being on. And everybody that's watching, we'll see you in another week.
Yeah.